Hello and welcome to Uncovered, the podcast with your host, Jason Irving. Join me in a journey to understand what's truly happening in your world and the world around you. This is not about how you're living life on the surface. It's about what's truly driving you from under the covers. I'm going to take you on a journey to deeply uncover the reason why you are here, the ultimate purpose in your problems and the way that they have shaped your life up until now. See, I believe you have a purpose, and your problems are the highway towards ultimate realization of that journey towards freedom and the reconnection of your true self. I've been told I have a different spin on most things, and I'll be giving you my understanding of life, love, and what we're all here for, purpose. To get the best out of this podcast, drop what you already know so you can discover what's beyond you. So join me, let's play this game of life and bring on liberation, transformation, and change. Let's do this.
Hello, Jason, and hello, Rocky. How are you guys today?
Yeah, not too bad. I sang a song for you today. Welcome to Uncovered from a Distance. You didn't know it, but and I had to YouTube it today.
Yeah.
It wasn't good, was it?
Well, do you mean the song or your performance?
My performance.
Well, let's just
You
say
can be honest.
Yeah, okay, it was very good.
Yeah, thanks, love.
I think you're not born to sing.
No, I'm definitely not born to sing. There are a few singers that are in the academy that are very good, but definitely not me. We're going to be working with depression today, or talking about depression. I believe that depression holds the answers to all your problems and the world's, and it's a magical gift of insight.
But how does the world usually look at depression?
Well, look, if you think about how the world sees it, and this is why we have a massive systemic problem around depression in the world, it is the highest suicide problem in the world. So when people are in depression, we end up not being able to live and exist, because it feels like all our problems are like a boulder that's actually squashed on top of us. Mm-hmm. And I know what that feels like. I was in depression for a couple of years after I left my ex-wife, and I didn't get to see my daughter, and there was all sorts of things going on. And I was working as a therapist, but I had a purpose, so it was okay. I managed to get through my depression. I was one of those silly people that didn't talk, like natural fellas that don't talk to anybody about their depression. This is why males tend to commit suicide. The rate is much higher with men than it is women, because women are smarter, in my opinion. They will talk about how they're feeling to other people. Whereas I was this typical schmo doing personal development and being the biggest fool imaginable. So I was building up the depression. I was just lucky that I was doing the work with people that allowed me to get out of my depression. So the 2 years that I was in it, I thank my lucky stars I was doing something that I loved. Otherwise I would have been a wreck. Might not have been here, to be honest. So I think the world sees depression in the way it is. Like, this is the way it is at the moment. So there's quite a few people, as you know, in the academy who are breathing oxygen simply because they're in the academy. And there's a guy, Ian Rennell, that we've got a podcast series with him. It's called Breathing Oxygen, and it's about depression and suicide. So that's how the world sees it, and it's true, right? I get it. The tricky thing is, well, how do we deal with such a big phenomenon, especially right now where the increase in suicide with girls and boys, teenagers, is rising rapidly at the moment. So there's a systemic problem in the world. This is major. This is one of the hardest things to work with and deal with. We're getting it wrong. Because if we were getting it right in the world, or how the world sees it, the world would be de-escalating. It would be dropping. Suicide rates would be dropping down. They're not. They're rising, especially because right now, because of COVID and all the situations that are happening, everyone's separating, and depression is already an isolator, right? So if we don't have human contact, and we don't, which is what the normal human condition is to do, is human contact is essential for our souls. We have to touch, we have to feel, we have to meet. And now we're all on technology, looking at our phones, which is making the pressure and the discord away from our hearts and our understanding it's moving away even further simply because of this new age. I mean, don't get me wrong, tech is great, but it's also not great.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking us away from conversations.
Yeah.
You see people at dinner time and they're all on their phone chatting to someone on their phone, looking at their phone, because everyone's heavily addicted to their phones and not engaging a lot at the moment.
Absolutely. And I think that's definitely also related to, to the depression rates.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a couple of things like isolating yourself and not talking about what's going on. What are other typical things that people who experience depression might do?
Addiction.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be drugs, this will be alcohol, and this will be food. So one thing I want to hand to you guys is that sometimes the happiest people are the most depressed. So I see that in a lot of comedians, really depressed comedians, and you can see it in their eyes. Don't be fooled by the laughter that they're giving you. You have to look into a person's eyes to see what's really, really going on with someone. And I see so much depression in comedians, and they do comedy to actually try and uplift themselves and feel okay in the world. Because if you think about, comedians actually talk about the really tough stuff, and it's like they're given permission to talk about racism and talk about white and black and all of this stuff, but it's comedy, so it's okay. Mm-hmm. So they can go to areas that a lot of people can't because they're comedians.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they're dealing with putting the truth out there a lot of the time in a comedic way, and they get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whereas if you were serious about some of the things that they said, they'd probably be kicked off, off the stage.
Yeah, 100%. That's for sure.
So what we've got to understand is, don't be fooled by a person who's happy, because that's one of the biggest smoke screens to depression. Right? And I did that. No one would have picked that I was depressed, because I had this jovial. I remember this one guy caught me out when I was in this space, in the depression space, and he said, "How are you, Jason?" I said, "Yeah, doing my best." That was my way of this, just having a big smile on my face, doing my best. And he said, "How are you really?" And I broke down.
Wow.
Because he knew I was just faking it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so what we have to understand with depression, we have to take it seriously. It's really, really important to understand what to do with it. So one thing I found with depressed people, I've been very lucky and very fortunate to meet depressed people who have had the model not work for them. So they've gone and seen psychologists and psychiatrists, and they've fallen out of that web, and that somehow they've found me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually the reason why people come and find me, because the model hasn't worked for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they go, okay, I need something alternative. And that was when I was a therapist. So, and then I would do something very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
I would let them be in depression.
And not tell them it's wrong.
Never. Just like every one of the emotions, guys. You might be getting this, but if this is the first time you're listening to one of my podcasts, just a pure acceptance of the emotion that the person was in. And then they would talk about the problems that they were facing. So people with depression, it's like they're in the deepest part of the ocean. That's the metaphor. They're in the deepest part of the ocean,
mm-hmm.
and they have the breathing apparatus, but they're going further and further to where there's no oxygen to breathe. And if they go right down into the place where it's so dark, like right in the depths of the ocean, that's when it gets too much.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I've been lucky enough to catch people who are in that space of, and I didn't know this. I've had people tell me after, you were my last resort.
Wow.
You were my last choice. If you didn't do anything to help me, I was going to take my life. And I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And they wouldn't tell me about stuff that they were wanting to take my life. So there was no duty of care for me to go and send them to someone, because there was no conversation about that.
Mm-hmm.
We just worked with where they were. I remember this guy, Ian Rennell, who, with the Breathing Oxygen podcast that's up there. Listen to this if you want to get a little bit more insight around that part of depression and suicide. He came to see me, and I said to him, he remembers this. Not too much good going on here, and we didn't talk about the depression, but he walked out feeling really elevated. And he just kept coming back. And then eventually he told me, he was suicidal. And so what I've learned to do, and he started talking to me about things that he was thinking and what was important, and it wasn't on the road. It wasn't things that were on the top of the surface. They were more deeper problems that he was facing and problems that he was seeing in the world. And he was overwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
And that's what happens with people that are depressed. They get overwhelmed because they feel there's no way out. And so what I show is how to find the answers through depression. So anytime I had it a couple of months ago, and I said to the group and that I'm feeling depressed right now, because as a leader I share what's going on for me, and people were sending me personal messages who were new in the academy, people who were older in the academy going, cool, Jason's in his depression, we know what he's up to, he's going to check in to see what gold is in the darkness. He's going down to where the oxygen is lacking, and he's going to breathe oxygen into the darkness to find some more light in himself. And so one thing I've learned around how to work with depression is I look at it as the gift for solutions. There's always a solution in depression.
And how did your view of it kind of shift, or did you always look at it that way?
Well, there was a moment actually when I was chatting to Anya, and we were chatting on Gmail, messaging each other when there was no Messenger, Facebook. There was probably Messenger, Facebook. We weren't using it. We were using Gmail chat, and we were chatting away. And she said, I said I was really, really depressed about my daughter Jasmine, and she said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "No, I don't need help." And then I took a big breath into my depression, and then I saw all the things that I was doing as a therapist. I never judged everyone's emotions ever, and I was judging my own. So I felt like I was the slowest learner. Here I was. I realized what I'd done that day, though, how I was helping people. Since 1998, helping people. It was 2012 or 2011 at the time, and I realized the moment, and I felt really silly. In the moment, I saw all the emotions like in a sea, and they all came as one. And then I realized there's reasons for each specific emotion, and then I wanted to find out what they actually meant. So that was my journey. Depression actually gave me the understanding of a difference between what I was understanding emotions to be and the value of those heavy emotions that people call, and I wanted to know what they were more about, and that's what these emotional insights are about. I wanted to know why they were there, not how can I fix them, because I wasn't fixing anyone's problems. I was just being with them. So I learnt something very, very special that day, and it changed my life. I was just like, okay, now I understand what I do for the first time. It took me 14 years to figure that out. And then I started asking, well, what does depression mean? What's it for? And I started getting answers, and people were coming into me with depression and they were walking away happy. They just needed answers. And I helped them with answers and definitions and understanding. And the moment they had answers, definition, and understanding, there was a way forward. Depression disappeared. I was like, okay, I'm onto something. And every person that I worked on, no judgment, we just find some answers, we find an understanding, and then the depression would go away like that. And it would just disappear from people, because I'd done that so many times. But I didn't really know what it was that people were getting from me. All we want is understanding. That's all we want. We want to understand why. And then depression, when you ask its why, it gives you value.
It's really interesting, isn't it? Very different way to look at it. And what do you suggest for people that know someone who experiences depression, or who they assume is feeling depressed? Like, would you say to them as well, like, to go have a chat with them and just hold the space and just accept that depression, rather than saying like, oh, just do what makes you happy, like go on a holiday, that'll make you feel happier, or go do some yoga or exercise or whatever it is, you know.
That's yoga and exercise and all of those things for already we're doing addiction. So there are people who are highly addicted. They find they're almost at death's door. I'm thinking about a person now, and then they find this thing that they're going to do. But if they don't do that thing and break their leg, then they're back in the depression again. So it's only a band-aid. So if we suggest to someone to go and do yoga, to go and do those things, they're great suggestions. In that moment, you need to be with them. Hold space for where they are and ask them how they're doing, and talk to them. Just make sure that you're really present for someone with that space, and just ask them, are you suicidal? How deep is the depression? Where do you go? What's your head go? Because a number of times I've said to people, you think about killing yourself all the time, don't you? There's a young guy, Liam, that is breathing. He knew where he was going, the rabbit hole, and the way he was thinking. And I basically took him out of that picture by expressing what I saw, and I've given him things that he needs to do, but I had to accept where he was first. And then we give the moments of the things that's going to liberate us and make us find joy.
Wow. And what about people with depression? What do you recommend for them?
Look, if you have depression, the most important thing is you need to reach out. Don't be like me, especially if you're a fella. Reach out, get help, and you need to get the right help, right? So if you find someone who's trying to get you to do something and it doesn't feel right, find someone who's going to hold space and do it for you. You've got to look for the right person who is going to meet where you're at. So you don't give up if you find someone who just didn't help you. You know, and I'm not saying not to go and see psychologists, psychiatrists. You've got to find the right type of person that's going to fit you. Kinesiologist, chiropractor, hairdressers. You know, people are healers all over the place. So it's looking for the person who is going to give you the right help that you need, so you can get on a path. The worst thing you can do is isolate. If you're doing drugs or those sorts of things, quite often those things are the things that keep you alive. So if you've got something and you take it away, then those messages get really, really loud. That's why people do alcohol, drugs, and all those things when they've got it, to actually numb the thoughts and get them away so they're not bombarding them, right? So it's really important that if you are addicted to something, that you learn and you get the help to go off it, so you can deal with the depression and the thoughts that are coming along with that as well. So it's not something that I suggest you do and meet and do on your own. You got to get help. You got to reach out and make sure that you find the right people, and you'll find it. You'll search for it, and you'll get the right person to come and give you a hand. Meditation is very, very important. That's a great thing to be addicted to. That can really help you do that. Do we have a meditation around depression? Do you know? Shall I make one?
I think we should make one, yeah.
Okay. Well, guys, I might make one for you guys, and it might give you a little bit of a hand.
That'd be great, actually.
Oops. Sorry about that. My phone is on loud. You think that's about it?
Yeah, that's all the questions I've got for today. Thank you very much for sharing your view of depression. It's very, very different.
Yeah, it is different, and depression's actually one of my favourite emotions. I love it because it's given me so many insights in my life, and I wouldn't be who I am without it. And I quite often spend time with it when I'm happy.
Cool.
It's interesting, isn't it? You go and spend time with something that, I'm going to go and spend some time with depression today. I'm feeling good, right? Because you can actually, on purpose, with the work that we do, work with the hard stuff while you're in good shape. And it's the best time to work on the more difficult emotions as well. You end up more serene when you work on this tough stuff when you're in good shape. So guys, if you like this podcast, or you know someone who's got depression, or you want to listen to the Breathing Oxygen podcasts, they're all up. So have a look at those as well. You get a little bit more definition on. I interview a guy, Ian Rennell, around depression. So if you want to get a little bit more insight than just this one, please do so. And our website is www.wellnessbreakthroughacademypodcast.com. We'll pop a meditation for depression on that website, so you can grab it. Okay. Thanks so much for today, and thanks for listening to Uncovered, and thanks, Philia.
Thank you.